Eddie Kramer. Hey, buddy.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Hello, Hawaii.
How you doing, buddy?
Aloha.
Good to hear from you again, and it's exciting because we're talking to you on the eve of Blue Wild Angel, Jimi Hendrix live at the Isle of Wight, emerging.
Yeah, that was a wonderful movie that has been resurrected because I don't know if the folks out there know, but when this originally came out, Jimmy's performance in it was cut down to about 20, 30 minutes, and we were very fortunate. We went to the original tapes and restored not only the audio, but the whole movie, and now Jimmy's performance is 2 hours long. Plus, we put in the front of the movie a 10-minute documentary piece with Billy Cox and Mitch Mitchell, who were interviewed, and it's really a lovely piece now.
Yeah, I understand. It's really going to be something else for the folks to be picking up, and we'll get to that. I wanted to do sort of a chronological thing with you, Eddie, since you have such an impressive resume and list of artists, and I also sort of went to the phones leading up to this and got a few questions together from my midday listeners. I would like it if you could sort of tell the folks about the very first time in London, you were working at Olympic Studios, that you got to meet Jimmy, where you were working, what you were doing, every possible detail about that first encounter with Jimi Hendrix.
Well, it's this kind of a strange thing because the studio manager at the time said to me, she said, "Oh, Eddie," in her lovely little English voice, "there's this wild American chap with the big hair. Do you want to do this session?" And I said, "Of course, I've heard of Jimi Hendrix. His reputation had preceded him because he had the first single out. And because he came in October of '66, and then by January of '67, we were installed at the new Olympic, and Jimmy and Chaz were very unhappy with the way things were going in terms of their recordings, so they had heard about Olympic, which was the new studio on the block. And so I got the job because she said, the studio manager said to me, "Well, you do all that weird stuff anyway, so this would be perfect for you." Of course, so when Jimmy and Chaz walked in, it was love immediately. This very quiet guy in a actually Jimmy was wearing a raincoat of all things, like a trench coat. It was kind of strange, but because it was January of '67.
So it was a bit chilly out.
It was a little chilly, yes. London was a little bit nippy, as they say, and we just hit it off right away because I guess maybe we were kindred souls or whatever. Maybe because of the fact that I came from a musical background and I could understand what he was getting at. And I wasn't intimidated by the noise or the levels or anything like that, and I just was able to get him some cool sounds. Just to expand upon that idea that I said previously, that the musical background that I have was classical and jazz and then rock, and so therefore my mind was wide open to receive any ideas. For instance, he would go in the studio and play through the Marshall and do something really crazy in there with a wah-wah pedal or with an octave divider or something, and then I would listen to it, and then when he came into the control room, I would have tweaked it out and made it sound even better.
Wow.
So when he came in, he going, "Oh, wow, that's so cool," and that would inspire him in turn to go back out and do something even more crazy. So we kept trying to sort of one-up each other, and that was really good. And I have to say this, that there was a phrase that always comes to mind, and that is, the rules were, there are no rules. That's the big thing, and we just broke new ground every time we were doing something new.
So you two were feeding off of each other, your energy off of his, the ideas, the way you would sort of interpret something he did on the board, and then he would kind of take it further.
Right, and then it would be back and forth, and each time we did it, we upped the ante, and we would just get completely crazy and wild and just I would do the most bizarre things with the sound, which would suit him. The other thing that was going on was that he would describe a sound in colors, and I learned how to interpret what he was saying. If he wanted to, "Hey man, I want that thing to sound purple," and I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Wow, and he would describe it in colors, and you would be able to deliver that to him.
Yeah, I would reinterpret it as a sound and give it to him, and he would go nuts,
I went to the phones and asked, I got a call from JT from the Waikiki area. He's a lifeguard. He wanted to know how much of an influence the music that Jimmy was listening to, the popular sounds of that late 60s era, how much of an impact did it have on his own sound through the years?
Oh, tremendous. I mean, the classic example is the Beatles. I mean, he loved the Beatles to the point where when he opened a show at the Savile Theatre in 1967, Sgt. Pepper had been out for 2 days, and he had bought the record or gotten hold of a copy of the record, an advance copy, listened to it, studied it, and then this was literally 48 hours after the album had come out. He did a show at the Savile Theatre, and in the audience was the Beatles, and he opened the show with Sgt. Pepper, and I remember going up to the dressing room and saying hi before the show, and on the record player was Sgt. Pepper, and he was showing Mitch and Noel, okay, guys, here are the chords, let's goes like this, and 5 minutes before they went on, they were rehearsing it, and they went out and knocked everybody dead, and the Beatles' jaws just dropped to the floor. They just couldn't believe it.
Didn't they open with it or something?
Yeah, they opened the show with Sgt. Pepper.
That is huge. In your times with Jimmy, you would say that you got to do some traveling with him?
I did a little bit, not too much, because, I was basically in New York recording. I did go down to Florida with him for what they call the Miami Pop Festival, and we did record there. I also took pictures of him there as well. Well, here's a classic example. I remember at Miami Pop, I think the show was on a period of 2 days.
Okay.
He played the first show, but the second day, when he was supposed to play it got rained out, and he couldn't perform. But I remember going in the limo back to the hotel and sitting next to him, and I glanced over, and he was writing Rainy Day, Dream Away. He was writing the lyrics to that, so he would use the time beneficially.
Towards like furthering tunes and working out ideas.
I mean, there you are, right there, writing a lyric to Rainy Day Dream Away, which we were in the middle of recording Electric Ladyland, so there it is.
And you have the memory in your mind of looking
Absolutely.
over there.
Very clearly.
That's great. Diane from Kaneohe asked if you go through Jimi Hendrix's favorite foods or any brands or products that you remember him favoring.
Well, obviously, I think Jimmy loved soul food. I mean, that'd be natural. I don't remember anything specific other than, genuinely soul food and genuine American food, because, of course, he had lived in England for a while, and I guess he kind of pined and missed American hamburgers and stuff. But, I don't know if his food tastes were very eclectic. I think they were very basic. And I guess having been in the Army and all the rest of that, and having done the Chitlin circuit with Billy Cox, I guess that's where his taste for Southern food must have come from.
Just to add to Diane's question, do you remember any memorable meals that you had with him, something that sticks out in your mind, a time sitting around the table eating food with Jimmy that brings a smile to your face as I ask you about it?
No, I can't say that I did. The thing that does bring a smile to my face, which is not food-related, but certainly I laugh about it, was Jimmy had several Corvettes. And I don't know if this is anybody's question, but I'll throw it out anyway because it's just a kind of a funny memory. And this particular vet, this was in 1968, so you can imagine a 68 vet. It was silver, and it was sparkly silver with kind of rainbow colors on it.
Uh-huh.
And we went up 8th Avenue at 80 miles an hour, and he was wearing sunglasses. Afterwards, I said, "Hey, Jimmy, are those prescription sunglasses?" He said, "No, man, I just like them because they're cool." And I mean, we went up so fast, it was ridiculous. And I thought he put these special sunglasses on. He just did it because he thought he'd look cool.
And that's a great memory, you and him in the car in New York City.
You got it.
Eddie, I want to do a little word association with you, sort of like song association, I guess you could think of it, if you will, with some song titles. And I just want to see what pops in your head in terms of maybe a memory of the song, maybe its creation, some image, I'm sure, will come to mind. Easy Rider.
Electric Lady Studios doing the remix and the overdubs. very strong memory of him being in his own studio at that particular point.
The studio that you built for him?
That we designed and built for Jimmy. This was Jimmy's home for 4 months, May, June, July, August of 70.
How many times do you think you guys ran through takes of Easy Rider?
Oh, quite a few. I mean, it was done at various places. It was also recorded somewhat at the record plant and also at Electric Lady and lots of overdubs. There was a lot of work done on it.
Terry from IAEA was curious about Room Full of Mirrors and any memories you may have about doing that.
I remember mixing it. I remember doing a lot of the overdubs. It was recorded in various different places. Once again, this is one of those complicated songs that had its genesis was probably the record plant or the Hit Factory. I didn't actually record the original track, but I did all the overdubs and subsequent mixing on it. It was a bit of a raggedy kind of a track. But it had a very unique sound to it, let's put it this way.
Yeah, no, I love the guitar sounds in that one. Mike in Kailua was curious about Angel. What was Jimmy's inspiration for that?
Don't really know. He had a wonderful, soft and gentle and sort of cool side to him, which produced songs like Angel, and there are ballads, you know, that, I mean, and his vocal on that is just so beautiful and touching. I think Little Wing and Angel are kind of in the same ballpark. That just really showed that lovely ballad side of him.
Yep.
And he had a wonderful tone color in his voice when he sang that. That song is played, it was played actually at Al Hendrix's funeral, and it's a kind of a sad song, but a very uplifting song at the same time.
Wow, that's heavy. So that was played by whom at Al's funeral?
The record itself.
Okay, the Jimmy version then. Wow. Tonight, as you know, on the air here, we're doing a special on-air finale to Jimi Hendrix Day. And since we're also presenting Blue Wild Angel on 2 big screens over at Pipeline Cafe for an exclusive Big Kahuna audience, and live at the Fillmore East in its entirety would be our sort of on-air finale, if you will. And I was wondering if, to the best of your recollection, you could sort of paint the pictures of that whole process of those shows taking place.
Well, the Fillmore East stuff was recorded. I mean, this band, as the public probably knows, was put together specifically because Jimmy owed an album to Capitol Records, and it was decided to do it at the Fillmore East live. Subsequently, I mixed the album with Jimmy. And I've mixed this thing a couple of times now, but yeah, the latest one is the definitive version, I would say. There were a lot of things surrounding this. I mean, this was a brilliant band. I mean, it had tremendous power. Jimmy, Buddy, and Billy really got in the groove, as it were, and those shows were tremendous. I mean, they just were historical shows. The audience was just stunned by the performances. And of course, there's the famous, one of the shows wasn't all that good, and you know, Bill Graham was the one who went backstage and said, "Jimmy, come on, man, that was terrible. You got to do better than that." And Jimmy went, "Oh yeah, you're right." On the next show, he just pulled out all the stops.
Were you there when that happened?
I was not there. No, I wasn't there for that particular confrontation, but it is well documented.
Yeah, no, that's a historical one. And
I would also say, that the latest versions that people can buy now of this that's really the definitive version. It does sound really quite good.
Yeah, the one that we're playing here tonight is clearly the one that people should pick up live at the Fillmore East, it's called, on Experience Hendrix.
And there's also, of course, a DVD of that as well.
Yeah, really, really high-quality material. And these guys, as I've said often on the radio, wherever I've been, Jimi Hendrix's music couldn't be in better hands. These guys really care about it. They take really good care of it, and they have painstakingly gone over these tapes. Prior to the New Year's shows that we're just talking about, you were involved with a gig that some may arguably say is Jimmy's best known, and that is Woodstock, the original Woodstock in '69. And I'd like it if you could talk about how you came to be so important to documented rock history as we know it, just beyond Jimmy, with that entire festival.
I was asked actually by the guys who were making the film, because obviously Jimmy was the star attraction at Woodstock. Unfortunately, he never got on at the time he was supposed to, which was Sunday night. He was supposed to close the festival. But as you can imagine, everything dragged on and on. It built up over a period of 3 days, what I call 3 days of drugs and hell. And he actually only started performing at about 9 o'clock on the Monday morning. And, of course, you see that awful shot of the crowd sort of dissipating and all the mud, the sea of mud. But Jimmy somehow manages to pull it together and do an incredible version, the Star Spangled Banner, which is historical, and it's so much burnt into the American public's ear and eye to hear Jimi Hendrix perform this in his inimitable way.
And it's now part of the American cultural lexicon.
It really is, and I was so fortunate enough to be asked to go up there and record the whole thing. The only way I could possibly have done it, we had vitamin B12 shots, and my God, they were painful.
And you did the whole festival, right?
Yeah, I recorded the whole thing. I was up for 3 days and 3 nights. I basically slept for a few hours each night on the floor of the truck behind the stage where we were recording this. And it was recorded 8-track, if you can imagine. So it was very primitive, to say the least. There are many, many stories I can tell you about it, but suffice to say that when Jimmy went on, the place lit up. The remaining people who were there just lit up.
Yeah, no, I mean, he had the charisma, and certainly in any situation he could bring it out. Someday we'll have to pick your mind just on Woodstock.
And the same thing applies, I think, to Wild Blue Angel, or Blue Wild Angel, because he actually says it both ways in the movie. He says Wild Blue Angel or Blue Wild Angel, say whatever way you want it.
Right.
And that movie has really been transformed, because when I first saw it and heard it, I wasn't all that impressed. But subsequently, when one sees the entire performance from beginning to end and what's been done to the film, and now I've had the opportunity to remix it in 5.1 surround sound, which is hopefully what you guys are going to be seeing in Hawaii,
mm-hmm.
It really is a challenge for Jimmy to pull himself up by his own bootstraps and make this thing work, because what's happening is there's all kinds of garbage coming through his amp. He's got taxi cabs blasting through it in the middle of his songs, and it's very disturbing. So he actually stops the show and starts it one more time because he was so upset. But he manages to pull this amazing performance out of himself and the band. I mean, once again, he goes on, he closes the show. It's 400,000 people. It's raining cats and dogs. It's England, I mean, English cats and dogs are different than American cats and dogs. You realize that?
Yeah, they're big when they come down.
Yeah, they're big-ass cats and dogs. Anyway, he manages to pull us together. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. People are sort of all, really pissed off, and he just does an amazing job. It's very compelling. It's a hell of a compelling film, and I urge people to go and see it. Like I said, it's a compelling performance from beginning to end, because you see this man struggling, and you go with him on his struggle. You go with him on this journey, and at the end he triumphs. And that's what's so cool about the movie.
Now, my other buddy at Experience Hendrix, your partner John McDermott, was telling me the story of how in the footage you can actually see Jimmy sort of becoming aware that this is all being recorded, and he questions whether or not it's being documented.
Oh yeah, Jimmy was very, very much aware of what was going on.
Yeah, that was John's point, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You see that at the beginning of the movie. He sets that up. He wants to make sure this stuff is being done right.
Wow. Did he ever talk to you, Eddie, about his different time that he spent here in Hawaii?
I think he enjoyed Hawaii. I'm sure he found it fairly relaxing, but I know he also there were some problems with the movie that was being shot. And
sure.
we won't go into that detail, but suffice to say that the guys who were doing it were, let's put it this way, are not quite of this planet.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that rap before. I had a great question from Suzanne. She's from Eva Beach in the area here, and she was curious. This is something I'm very curious about, too. If you could take us sort of on a virtual tour of the vaults, where Jimmy's music is actually kept to this day, like when you guys went to do Blue Wild Angel, like in what form are the actual tapes in, and what does it look like? Describe for us. Pretend we're walking into that facility.
The problem is I couldn't do that because that would be a legal no-no. I couldn't just... Suffice to say that virtually everything that Jimmy ever recorded is very safely tucked away. It's very well protected in the best environment possible, which is humidity and protected. There's constant humidity, constant temperature, and it's incredible. It's Fort Knox, let's put it this way.
Oh, I believe it's very secure.
And that's all I can really say about it. It's always a thrill to go in there and have a look and see what's there, but there's enough material there to give the general public a new album every year for probably the next 10 years.
Wow. And you guys, and so but that's where all the original tapes basically are. They're all collected in there.
Yep. And that's at an undisclosed location. It's like NORAD, you know what I mean?
I completely do. I completely understand, and I don't want to disclose where it is. I was just more curious what it sort of looked like.
You know, if I took anybody there, I'd have to kill myself and then kill everybody around me. I mean, it's just that secret.
It's a major secret. I wanted to touch on some of the other moments in your career that are really memorable projects before I let you go, because I think it's important. A lot of these things are really core to our audience here. You did a lot of Led Zeppelin work. Which Led Zeppelin tunes were the most challenging?
Well, which were the albums I worked on?
Sure.
I worked on Led Zeppelin 2. I did House of the Holy, Physical Graffiti, Song Remains the Same, and Coda. And if that thing beeps again, I'm going to have to throw the phone out.
I didn't hear it. It didn't come through on this side.
Oh, good. It didn't come through on your side. Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
No beeping. So of all those Zeppelin records, which would you say was the most challenging?
Well, they all were to a certain degree because Jimmy Page is a perfectionist, and which is great and a real challenge to work with. And he's wonderful. He really knows what he wants in the studio. And working with Zeppelin in the beginning, which was here in America, we were just finishing up Led Zeppelin 2, and we actually mixed Zeppelin 2 in 2 days at the A&R studio in New York. House of the Holy and Physical Graffiti were done at Mick Jagger's house in England with the Stones Mobile.
Wow.
So that was a challenge. And then, stuff that was left. Of course, the big challenge was recording him live at Madison Square Garden. There you go.
Which you did.
Which I did, yes.
And when they did those shows that ended up being part of The Song Remains the Same back in 1973 at Madison Square Garden in New York, did they do the exact same show every night?
No, it was always different.
It was different.
Oh yeah, sure. They always varied stuff. I mean, it was never quite the same because Jimmy Page never played the same.
Do you still have a good rapport with those guys?
Oh yeah. I wish I'd had the opportunity to do the 5-1 remix of Song Remains the Same, because it always stuck in my craw that I mixed that properly once, and then the film company completely screwed it up for the release. But there you are. What are you going to do? You can't win them all.
No, you can, and you've won plenty of them, that's for sure. Give us a quick A to Z on how you got to work with the Beatles.
Well, the Beatles were busy working on their record, of course, which was going to be, I guess, I'm trying to remember now, this was 1967, and they couldn't get into EMI Studios, which was the place where they normally recorded. So they called us up because we were the next in line. In other words, we were the best independent studio. EMI, of course, was owned by the record company. But they couldn't get in there. They heard of our reputation because we were doing the Stones and Jimmy, and they decided to book us. And I was very fortunate. I got to work with them. One night we did Baby You're a Rich Man. We recorded the basic track, overdubbed it, and mixed it all in one night.
Man.
And then the next time I worked with them was on All You Need Is Love. I cut the basic track for that.
Wow. So you've got and you have little souvenirs from these sessions?
No, just the memory. I wish I had been able to take photographs, because have you seen my website?
I have not.
Yeah, KramerArchives.com. And there's 350 photographs of all the bands I work with, including Jimi Hendrix, the Stones, Zeppelin, Kiss, yada, 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 yada.
Well, I will, and I'm sure other listeners will go check that out. Very cool. I will go to that. What's the web address again, real quick?
KramerArchives.com.
Fantastic. From the Beatles, Eddie, to a band that sort of, I guess you could say, idolized them and were a Beatles themselves to children of the 70s, and that's Kiss. You were instrumental in many, many Kiss records that sold millions and millions of copies, including their 1975 Alive album, which went on to be considered one of the great live records. How did you come on board for that? Where was it actually recorded, and what's the story there?
Well, I started working with Kiss late 74, I believe, or 73. No, it was actually 73, because they came to me and said, well, we want you to record our demo. And I did their demo, which got them their record deal. And I still have a copy of it. It's an amazing little demo. And I didn't see them for about 2 years because they went on the road and established themselves as the killer rock band with, the flames and the blood and all the rest of it.
Sure.
So they had a good following. And then I got a call to do the live record, and I had a decision to make because sitting on my desk was a tape from Tom Schultz of Boston. And that was Boston's first record, and he wanted me to produce that. So the record company called me up and said, hey, who do you want to do? And I said, well, I think I have to do Kiss because it's more of a challenge.
What a great choice.
Yeah.
What a great story.
I called Tom Schultz up and said, hey, put the damn thing out the way it is. It's great. I can't add anything to this.
That is amazing. And you went on to do all of the released live Kiss albums, plus a pair of legendary studio albums. And Jeff out at Hickam had this question. Between Rock and Roll Over and Love Gun, which is your favorite studio Kiss album you did, and why?
They're both actually, they both were a challenge because of, how, why, and where we recorded the things. I don't know, I have just very good fond memories of being in the studio with Kiss because they were always so much fun to work with. And I don't really have a particular favorite. I mean, Love Gun has its tremendous qualities, and geez, I don't know. That's a tough call. It would be very, very hard for me to make a choice between those two.
Don't you make a guest keyboard appearance on Love Gun?
Yeah, Christine 16. Yeah, I play the piano because Gene said to me, "Hey man, play it like you're really stupid." Because I'm a classically trained pianist, so I had to sort of play like a bozo,
That's amazing. And I also hear you were working on a recent Santana project over the last few years.
Yeah, I helped Carlos on his new album, the run that just came out. I helped him on the 6 instrumental songs. I did all the guitar recording on that.
Wow, how was that to do?
It's very, very cool. The guy is amazing. He's a brilliant guitar player. And I got him a really nice guitar tone, and hopefully he's happy with it.
Yeah, I've got to meet him, and I interviewed him before, and I'm always amazed with what the stuff he comes up with. I'm really happy with the way things are turning out for him.
I'm working with a guy, the lead guitar player from Matchbox 20, Kyle Cook.
Oh.
We're working on a solo record. And I'm also working right now with a wonderful, wonderful singer. Her name is Lauryn Hill.
Wow, from the Fugees.
Miss Hill is absolutely stunning. Yep, I can't say any more than that. All I'm allowed to say is that I'm working with her.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I've spent some time with Wycliffe, her cohort in that band. Before I send you off on your way, because you've been so generous with your time, one final question here. Lisa from Hawaii Kai said, of all of the projects that you've gotten to work on in your career, which one would you choose as your favorite and why?
Well, it has to be Hendrix. And I would say probably Electric Ladyland, only because of its scope and its breadth, and the fact that this was an opportunity for Jimmy and I to really show off what we had learned over the period of time we were working together.
Wow. Well, certainly it is, I would call it your marquee artist, in a roster, however, of marquee artists. Thank you so much, Eddie Kramer, for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, and I'm looking forward to coming to Hawaii sometime very soon.
Yeah, I'd love to put together a thing and bring you guys out here, and we encourage everyone to go get the new Jimi Hendrix on DVD, CD, VHS, or limited edition collector's vinyl, Blue Wild Angel, live at the Isle of Wight.
Hi, this is Eddie Kramer, and I've recorded from the Beatles to Led Zepp, Joe Cocker to Kiss, Santana to the Stones, and of course Jimi Hendrix. But the guy I'm still trying to book studio time with is my good friend Dave the Man Lawrence on 105.9, the Big Bleedin' Kahuna in Honolulu. It's the only classic rock station, mate.